Hey guys, welcome to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we're back with a Sivir updated complete guide for patch, of course, 6.1 and onwards. So before we really get into it, of course, don't forget to check out Sivir's basic guide. I'll put up in the cards above for her skills, living order tips and tricks, as well as a couple of combos. But with that said, let's actually get straight into it. So the most major change is instead of going for BT, we're actually going to go for Shield Bow. And you can see that the top players all kind of mostly concur with that, with the top two going for Shield Bow, the third one going for BT. Now, honestly, I would say that any of Shield Bow or BT can work, because basically with BT, you get a little bit more AD and a little bit more consistent physical vamp, whereas with Shield Bow, you get a little bit less AD, but you do get that shield. And the shield on Sivir is pretty useful, mostly because Sivir is a low mobility, low range ADC. So normally in fights, you do have to be somewhat close to the enemies, and that means you can get hit with spells. And so of course having that additional safety with the shield bow is going to come in very handy. But of course, before you build the shield bow, you're going to want to complete your gluttonous greaves first for the early AD and Omnivamp. And then after the shield bow, you want to go for Navori, which is a core item on Sivir, just to get a faster cooldown on especially her W, but on her Q and E, that's pretty important as well. And then of course we have IE for the extra damage on crits, as well as more reminder for the armor pen and grievous wounds. And last item is very situational. However, I mostly like to pick Sivir into tanky teams because I think it's really good to bounce the boomerangs off of the frontliners. So I like to go for Black Cleaver as my last item, which gives me additional tankiness with the 400 HP. But also gives me a good amount of stats, right? 40 AD and 20 ability haste, as well as of course getting the armor shred, which is going to be able to be proc very easily by you bouncing your boomerangs off of the enemies. And then for the runes, you want to go for lethal tempo for the additional attack speed and range, most importantly. Brutal because you auto attack quite a bit as an ADC, Giant Slayer just to counter the tanks, and Alacrity for more attack speed. Finally, we have bone plating, of course, for the defensive capabilities. And for the summoner spells, I will link a summoner spell for ADC's video right now, and you guys can check out that one for my in-depth summoner spell explanation. But to cut the long story short is, you want to go for a cleanse if there's a ton of enemy CC, keeping in mind that Sivir already has a spell shield, so cleanse is needed a little bit less on Sivir. I think the best one you can go for is actually Ghost. Ghost, of course, allows you to kite around fights, and yes, you already have movement speed from your passive and ultimate, but with the Ghost movement speed, Sivir can really be insane with all that movement speed, and I've loved taking Ghost on Sivir. Obviously, Bearer and Exhaust are also options. But with all that said, let's talk about our gameplay next. Okay, so now moving on to the gameplay. Before we really get too deep into it, of course, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Any questions, queries, or remarks, feel free to leave them in the comments below, and I will be, of course, sure to address them. So, as you guys know, I like playing Sivir into teams with a very solid frontline. So, my main rationale for playing Sivir into these solid frontline champions is, well, basically, they're going to be close to you, right? Because they're melee, they're going to try to step up to either you or your teammates. This gives you a chance to pop your W and start attacking them, and this will inherently just bounce the boomerangs off onto the backline, thereby allowing you to attack the backline, in relative safety. So in this case, yes, we have a not too good lane matchup with Caitlyn and Braum here. Of course, Caitlyn being the longest base range ADC, and Sivir having short range. However, in the later part of the game, you can see that they have Braum and Darius, who are two solid frontline champions. Hecarim, to some extent, is a frontline champion as well, although he can dive the backline at times. But, 2 to 3 frontline champions, depending on how you want to see it. So a lot of people to bounce the boomerangs off of. And their two main backline champions, of course, are Ahri and Caitlyn, and these boomerangs will bounce off of the frontline champions onto the backline champions, so it shouldn't be too big of a problem. In fact, you see here, we're actually playing with Emilio. I think Emilio is one of the best supports you can play with for Sivir, because as I mentioned, Sivir is pretty low range, one of the lower range ADCs, not the lowest. That would be, of course, other than Nilah, that would be Lucian and Samira, but she does have a really low range. So of course, range is one of the balancing factors that Riot uses. So because Sivir has a lower range, she does have better DPS in team fights because of how her boomerang can kind of bounce around. And of course, if you had like a high range champion like Caitlyn, who can bounce auto attacks, that would be completely broken, right? Because she can just stand all the way far back and just bounce. right? But in this case, Sivir's damage is kind of balanced around her range, and as a result, with Melee increasing the range, you can get additional safety that you should not actually have to then, of course, use your boomerang bounces. So aside from Milio, of course, the two other best supports you can have are the other enchanters, which are Yuumi and Lulu. Basically, Sivir is that mid-game to late-game hyper carry that just wants to scale up to like 2-3 items and just wants to be buffed by a enchanter support. Of course, she does work with engagers as well. That guarantees you hit both parts of your queue, and then you can just stand behind them and DPS. That works as well, but I think that enchanters are just better, just in a general sense. So here, we've gone shoved in a little bit, and Miller is giving us the range increase. So you can see we're trying to take advantage of that range increase to kind of poke Caitlyn and Braum a little bit, and with Sivir in this lane, we have pretty solid wave control because we are against a tank support, and it's a Braum, right? So Braum is not only just a tank support, but he's also a warden, right? Which means that he focuses on protecting an ally instead of engaging, which is really the easiest kind of matchup you can get, right? If you're against an enchanter, they can be aggressive and poke you, or a mage, same deal. But since you're against like a tankier support, it's a lot easier for you to play because, for engaged supports, normally you can kind of just poke them a little bit. But for Braum, it's even better, right? You can poke them and he cannot even retaliate. He doesn't have a hook, he doesn't really have CC that he can proc very easily. So, we can pretty much just try to bully the Braum. And, yeah, Caitlyn cannot really bully us very much herself. I mean, she can, right? Because she has really high range. But without her support, she's a little bit, at a disadvantage, right? So this allows us to kind of take advantage of that and, of course, use that to control the wave as well as to just kind of poke them. You can see in the early levels, we already have dealt really decent poke damage to them, especially with the bounces, and we pretty much are in control of the wave all the time. Of course, Sivir is a pretty weak champion in lane, but depending on the lane matchup that you have, like for example this one, we can actually control the lane. So in this particular matchup, we actually went for cleanse because there's a ton of CC in the game. Like you have Darius hook, Darius slow. You have Hecarim's ult and pushback, Ahri charm, Caitlyn traps, Braum passive, Braum ulti. So in this game, I actually took cleanse on Sivir. Now, honestly, 9 times out of 10, I take ghost on Sivir because any CC, I normally will try to spell shield it and or use QSS. But in this case, since there's so much CC, I actually decided to take cleanse. I do partially regret it because there are multiple instances in this match where I kind of just really wanted to have my ghost. Like this is one of those opportunities that I really wanted ghost. You can see here I'm free hitting the backline for some reason. I flash forward, kill the Caitlyn, so we got the kill in the bot lane already. Hecarim runs into us, we kill him as well. Pick up a triple, Dragon is spawning right at this moment. Now I'm using my movement speed to try to make it to Ahri. Milio unfortunately dies, the ulti runs out, Twist of Fate jumps over to try to kill Ahri. I think he's got it. There we go. Ahri does go down. And overall, we got 3 kills and 1 assist out of that fight, and that is just huge, right? I mean, Ahri herself got 3 kills as well, so you can see in terms of goal, it's myself, Twisted Fate, Fiora, and Ahri all on like 4.5 K goals, so we're all kind of pretty fed. And honestly, this game is well, I'm not gonna spoil it too much because it hasn't really happened yet, so maybe we'll talk about it when the time comes. But for now, you can see we basically insta clear the wave. Olaf and Hecarim are contesting over the Herald. So here we're just checking Dragon to ensure that the enemy team is not sneaking a Dragon. Braum is making his way to the fight. But here, since Caitlyn is staying, I'm not going to ditch the lane because if not, Caitlyn is going to get free plating goal, and we don't want that. So I'm just going to stay, clear up the lane. Milio actually stays with me instead of roaming, so my team is at a numbers disadvantage at the Herald fight. So, yeah, Fiora does go in with a double kill though, and looks like Ahri is now on the run. So my team is actually winning in a outnumbered fight, which is great. So here, myself and Milio just getting some free tower damage while Caitlyn is trying to defend her tower. Milio gets rooted, takes a little bit of poke damage, and Caitlyn with a really nice sidestep on the Sivir Q. The Darius does pick up the Enchanted Ensemble, aka the Herald, but Fiora does go unstoppable by killing the Ahri. So Fiora got like what, 4 kills out of that exchange, making herself like the most fed member of the game. Meanwhile, Twisted Fate going for a very interesting build of rushing Magi's. Like, he has Magi's first item. And yeah, so for myself, you can see I have my shield wall completed ever since that triple kill, as well as, of course, having my Gluttonous Greaves. Dragon is still up, but has been just taken by the enemy team, so we lose both objectives, which is not very optimal, considering we're the team with a 5k gold lead. That is pretty horrendous, if I do say so myself. Fiora, pretty interesting build as well, has Sheen and Tear, so it looks like she's going for the Manamune build, so stacking Tear early, but she does get the entire tower with all of the plates, so she's gonna have a huge base here. Like, I believe she's gonna buy like 1.5 completed items. She does complete both her Manamune as well as her Sunderer. So yeah, lots of gold spent there. So for us, we push out our lane, and then we're going to recall and pick up our Navori components. We were pretty close to Navori actually, but we had no waves and no jungler farm, so we have to kind of go back and get components because we don't want to stay on the map with like over 2k gold in our pocket. That would not be very good. Fiora picks up another kill, and here once again we're just clearing the bot lane. And honestly, in this match, you can see that I'm going to say what's going to happen now because I think it's kind of happening already. But you can see in this match, we're 3-0-1. We are pretty fed at the moment. Not insanely fed, but we're pretty fed. So you can see here, who is insanely fed is Fiora. Fiora is going to town on the enemy team. And Twisted Fate, 2-1-5. But pretty soon, you can see he has already double-digit stacks on his Magi's. But pretty soon, he's going to get very fed as well. So honestly, in this game, it became a competition of Fiora, Twisted Fate and myself, who can carry harder. Like, all three of us were giga fed, and it was just a question of who was going to be the MVP of the game, kind of thing, and Milio kind of deciding who he wants to buff. Olaf unfortunately was a little bit out of the game. You can see in terms of the goal, Olaf is only at 5k compared to the 9k of Fiora, and myself and Twisted Fate almost at 8k. Fight kind of happening here. Engage goes in onto all of us. Looks like it's going to be a pretty huge fight. So you can see here, I board over the wall. I use my boomerangs to just bounce. I pop the ulti, pop the spell shield to step over the trap. And then you can see I'm just blasting whoever's the closest target to try to just bounce. Twisted Fate gets a couple of kills there. Ari comes over the wall, tries to go onto me. I'm going to have to hightail it for a little bit. And yeah, Twisted Fate actually picks up a quadra kill. And I believe I accidentally stole his penta, which was the third kill or something like that, which is a little bit unfortunate. But yeah, so here, yeah, Shubo, you can see in that fight that Shubo actually blocked a lot of damage from me, and without the Shubo, you know, I would have been, you know, a lot lower and might have even died. So Shubo definitely coming in handy. So here Braum is trying to defend the tower by himself. So you can see we're basically free hitting the Braum and bouncing off of the minions and just, yeah, hitting everybody. But unfortunately Fiora is really overextended. She goes down. Darius now off the reset is chasing us down. Here we actually could have killed the Darius if we played a little bit better and dodged his Q, but we didn't, and we end up dying as well. Classic overextension. So yeah, don't do that. Of course, this is the classic one where your team gets really fed, overextends, and then all dies. You can see 3 of us already died. However, we are able to trade a kill back. And now Olaf is trying to go for Caitlyn as is Twisted Fate. Twisted Fate picks up a double kill, and honestly at this point Twisted Fate has a full 30 stack Magi's. So this is kind of one of those rare instances where you rush Magi's and you actually get fed. So now Twisted Fate is fed out of his mind. Like, he has more gold than Fiora now, and he has a 30 stack Magi with Ludens and Death Cap. Meaning that at this point the AP he has is, like, I don't know how much AP he has, but it's through the roof, right? Like, at 10 minutes you should not have this much AP, right? So he is fed out of his mind, Fiora is fed out of her mind, and I'm fed, but not very much, like not really even compared to them, right? Like, I'm 4-1-5, which is pretty fed, but you know, you compare that to Twisted Fate and you compare it to Fiora, it's like, yeah, not really. If you know what I mean. So at this point my team is so fed that I don't think I actually even need to help them. So instead I'm going to use this time to instead farm it up and push in the minion wave, maybe take this tier 2 tower. You can see Fiora is all the way inside the base, has distracted 3 people single-handedly, and this allows me to go in and go for this tower, which I can just get, as well as evaporating the minion wave using my ability. So I can get the solo tower goal, which is as good as a kill and a half at this point. And now we have 2 people chasing me, so I'm trying to make it out of there. And here Olaf is trying to solo the dragon, so I'm just trying to head over to help out a little bit. Olaf decides to turn. I'm popping the ult to give Olaf the movement speed to run them down. Unfortunately, I can only really hit Braum because Caitlyn's way too far away. Olaf unfortunately dies, and 4 people turn up, and I die as well. Now Twisted Fate ults in, and I was thinking that this is the kind of the game-throwing fight, right? Like Fiora died in the base, me and Olaf died on the dragon, and now we have Milio and TF going in. I'm thinking that, you know, TF looks like he's about to get caught here, like right here, and I think Twisted Fate dies here, but somehow Twisted Fate actually flashes away, gets charmed by Ahri, but survives anyway, kills Ahri instead, kites it out, and with the Milio buffing him, is cleaning house. Hecarim is running for his life, Milio giving the movement speed, Hecarim popping the movement speed steroid himself, and yeah. So this is it's at this point I'm thinking like, you know what, I think this game is kind of unlosable, because like my TF is so fed, even when he's getting caught he's killing people. My Fiora is so fed, but she's I'm not gonna say trolling, but she's a little bit overzealous. Like look at that, she's going into the enemy base to kill people multiple times, and I don't think that's ever a good idea, because like it's gonna lead to you dying. Like she's died twice in the enemy base, make that 3 times, she's died like 3 times in the enemy base, and that cannot be a good thing. So here is a pretty funny one. So here you can see I spell shielded, thinking I was going to spell shield the charm, but I actually spell shielded the R of Ahri, and she charmed, and I actually got hit by it, and I was so shocked I cleansed like really late. And I think Ahri also thought that I would have blocked it, because she actually didn't even react to her charming me. So we were both kind of surprised that the charm was not shielded, which was pretty funny, all things considered. But yeah, that is indeed what happened. So at the current moment, I'm getting carried by my TF and my Fiora, but rest assured there will come a point in this match where I will have a pretty good fight. In the meanwhile, there's a huge wave in bot. Like Sivir eats up these waves for breakfast. You can see we instantly evaporate that wave to the point that Milio's come down and like, wait, there's no wave anymore. In the meanwhile, I'm also just farming the Crux. A fight is breaking out in the mid lane though, so Twisted Fate finally goes down. We're trying to make our way there as fast as we can, and I believe this is the fight that I was referring to. Unfortunately, Milio is giving the buff to the wrong person. Olaf is getting the attack speed buff, which is not really who you want to give the buff to. So you can see here, I'm just dealing insane damage because the boomerangs are bouncing off everybody. So here I'm popping down, I'm running in front line. And here you can see the mini wave is coming. Look at all those bounces, boom, 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 boom. It's just bouncing off of everybody. I believe Darius is like AFK, or he thought he was in base, but he ends up dying. Caitlyn dies as well. Hecarim somehow lives on 1 HP, and Fiora in the meanwhile is in the enemy base ending the game. So they're having to deal with the Fiora. And in the meanwhile, we are here in the mid lane trying to pick up the mid lane tower as well. Milio again is buffing the Olaf instead of me, which is a little bit annoying. And we're gonna have to back it off because the enemy team is kind of coming back, and we don't really want to get into another fight with them when we're overextended and we have yet to spend our gold. So here we just steal the enemy's jungle, and we lifesteal basically off of like jungle monsters and stuff. Although we are going to reset anyway to spend our gold. But yeah, I think that was a pretty classic Insane Sivir fight, except that we didn't even have a front line. We were the front line. Like we had Milio buffing us and just Olaf behind us, and we were just going ham, attacking everybody there. And here, yeah, we just clean up the wave. Baron is up. So here, Twisted Fate's pushing the bottom lane, and Fiora's pushing the mid lane. So I'm thinking this sounds like maybe it's Baron time, because we have 2 people like distracting the enemy team, so maybe it's time for Baron. But the whole enemy team is here. Fiora is in very deep, but she is very fed though, so she is surviving a long while. So here I'm trying to see if I can get an angle to go in without putting myself in danger. I run straight into a Caitlyn trap, but eventually we find the angle to get in on the fight, and you can see we pop the second phase of the ulti. We're running people down, but we don't get overzealous here, giving Fiora the movement speed. And here everybody on the enemy team is dying. There goes Darius. Or actually, Darius still alive. See if I can change that. So here, yeah, we get the Ahri. Trying to get the Darius. There we go. Darius goes down. It's a clean ace with the wave. So we're just going to end the game without even needing Baron. So that's going to be it for the video, guys. Although I think like we got carried by TF and Fiora, we still had a really good game ourselves. So I'm going to leave you guys with the stats as usual. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and goodbye.